Thank you very much. I am absolutely thrilled to be here, and I appreciate all of you coming and all of you on Zoom who are going to be participating as well. So thanks for making the effort to be here, and I hope we will have a great evening. What I want to do is show you what it is I really do. This isn't just a cleaned up version for a demonstration, but this is the truth. This is what my palette looked like when I finished painting the other day, and it's a mess. This is the way it looks most of the time. When I travel, I don't carry tubes of paint. I don't carry a lot of stuff with me. But with the palette, I can fit 2 of these little palettes inside it. So if I need more colors, etc. I got them from Cheap Joe, and 2 of them will fit inside, and so if I need extra paint for a longer trip. None of us know what I'm going to paint today, including me. I'm going to start, and I'm going to make some shapes. I know it's going to be landscape, and I'm going to see what it does. The one thing I never do when I start is wet the paint in the palette. I never do that. And the reason I don't is because if you have a plant that you overwater, it begins to mold. If you water all your paints with a spray gun and you use 6 of them, and then the next time you use 8 of them, and there are 5 here that you never use, and they start to crumble. So within 2 minutes of painting, if my brush is wet and I wet the thing, it's enough. So I don't wet them first. I have a lot of brushes. The reason for that is if you have 2 the same size and you put one into warm color, you don't have to rinse it off. It's good for the environment. You can save it, use the other for the cool color, and unfortunately I always forget which is which and I end up with all of them the same colors, but I make an effort. So maybe I'll start with a big brush. These are, and I'm going to make a wet shape, and then I'm going to put paint in it, and we'll see what happens from there. So I have to make sure that the water goes to the edge so that I can dump the excess off. Now, I don't know if you can see this shape. I can see some of it. If your water's dirty, it's easier to see it, but I wanted to have some holes in it for some white shapes. And it must go off the page someplace so you can dump the extra. If I'm on location, I might take a piece of paper and draw in with a brush with water, just a cityscape, the skyline, or something I see. It doesn't have to be just from my imagination or abstract. I'm putting as much water as I can. I hope it's all connected because all these splatters are going to be weird. So let me connect some of them. And maybe did I cover enough territory for the first pass? Yeah, I think so. We will find out. Okay, I'm going to start with, since this is very wet, I'm going to maybe it's a little too puddly. There we go. If you're in a dry climate, you might have to, and you take a lot more time to draw the water in, you may have to come back and add some water before you dump it. Okay, now I'm going to use some of the more transparent colors, and here's a lot of it, of dioxazine purple. And some, I don't know, quinacridone coral maybe. All right, so I'm going through the red family here. Where it hits the dry, I get a hard edge. Here's some alizarin. I'm just working with reds on this side of the page. Here's some burnt orange, quinacridone burnt orange. I'm not worrying about what it looks like. I'm just throwing paint on. This doesn't look at all familiar. I've got a lot of purple in the brush. I might put it aside and grab another brush. So here's my purple brush. This one is an Escoda brush. I have hardly used it. It's brand new. Okay, and now I'm going to go into some cool colors on the other side. So there's probably a Windsor blue in here. I'm working again with the transparents. If I have a lot of water, I prefer transparents because they'll run. I'm hitting dry spots. Is there any water over there? All right, we'll go over here. Maybe I'll just get some more water in here. These blues tend to look alike. They aren't, but all right, I'll hit my purple brush again. Oh, it wasn't purple anymore. Where'd the purple go? Is that connected or is it a space? It's not connected, so I'll connect it. And let's see what happens. So I haven't decided yet what kind of a color dominance I want, whether I want it to be dominantly warm or dominantly cool. Whichever way I tip this will make that decision. But I'm getting neutrals where the warms and the cools are meeting. And I don't usually mix grays on my palette. I prefer to do it this way. If you find you love one area, but you want another area to run, you can just hold it flat on one side. That's why if you have stretched paper, it doesn't work, but you can maneuver it this way. All right, now I'm going to work with some of these edges because they're sort of weird. That kind of pulls you out, but it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to just bring this up, and I'm kind of thinking of, maybe it's a piece of land back there or something. And since I see that line there, maybe I'll bring it straight across here. I'm kind of weaving this shape through. How far do I want it to go? I'll go to there and come up there. I don't want any of these drips to look like drips. I want them to look intentional. So anything that looks sort of messy, I'm cleaning up the edge, because it's easy to do it now and it's harder to do it later on. That's an awfully small little white. If it were bigger, it would be easier to work with, but I'm not sure if I want it or not, but I'm not, it's not offending me. So all I'm doing is looking at these shapes. They're sort of landscapey. That's a little brighter than I like. Cleaning up edges. And I think I'm ready for another layer on this. Or I can just, why don't I just work over here? You can see how old this brush is. I hope it lasts the evening. All right. I'm going to do a slightly different technique over here. Instead of using transparency and running it, tipping it and running it, I think I'm going to use less water, get rid of the excess, and maybe some more opaque paint. So I'm going into some cobalt turquoise here, and some cobalt blue, and maybe a little cad something. I don't know what it's going to look like, but there's plenty of paint in there, so if I lean on it, even though it'll have a soft edge, it'll stay where I put it. And maybe I'll add some of my greens, olive and sap, and sometimes I combine transparents with opaques. So even on very wet paper, if you lean on your brush and you use some opaque and you don't get too heavy with it, that's kind of fun. Maybe a little more of it in here. I'm thinking of foliage or something in that area. That almost could be a flower center, but it's not going to be in this picture. So this is very different from this, but I'm putting this in now just to show you that you can have a lot of control on wet paper as long as you add some opaques to the piece. Now I'm going to dry this and put another layer on it. Let me just run it like that so it won't take forever to dry. And I don't really like any of this, so I can't wait to cover it up. Okay, it's dry enough. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So with the water, maybe I'll repeat that shape a little bit. Come in with a lot of water. Maybe bring that across here and down in here. I'm coming around a lot of shapes. We'll see what that does. Let me move it south. It wasn't dry there, so it was damp, and it's making a really interesting texture. I like that. Again, so I wet it, I dump the extra water. I'm going to throw paint somewhere where it's still I'm resisting. I was going to hit the blue, and I'll hit the blue brush for it. I don't really have to think about values because 2 coats are going to be darker than 1 coat. So wherever I put a second layer, it's going to be darker. Maybe repeat that shape by a negative there. I'm looking at the underpainting as I'm putting in this next layer. Let's see where it is. And then as I go down, I'm going to go into some Sap green. I don't know which one of these is sap, so I'm going in both of them. It's whatever I have over there. And some more blue. And the question is how much paint and how much water. And whatever value you get depends on how much paint or how much water dilutes it. And you need to actually put a little more paint than you think you need because the water is going to dilute the value. Now let's see what happens. I've got everything. I'm getting some things I'm liking coming up here. I like the way some of these are running over some of the others. I want to clean up edges again. I still have plenty of dry paper where I can extend stuff. I'm seeing like an edge that could be a tree edge, and then I could put branches against. These are looking a little bit like rock. And this is kind of boring. Let me put something across it. I kind of like the contrast here, so maybe I'll try and get some more. I'll continue that. Sometimes I'll develop an area quickly, and sometimes I'll do more of this abstract stuff longer, just depending what I feel like doing. This is a lot of the underpainting, and I'm going to get into more development of this. But I feel like there are mountains and trees and things like that emerging. So this I filled in more, so it's not going to have much shape, it's just going to have color in it and maybe more like the wet and wet over there. So I'll go back to the greens and the turquoise, because it's over here anyway. And then I'll add some purple to it to darken it. When I play around with a stroke, I can get some interesting shapes that I hadn't thought about. I don't know whether those are see-throughs or what, but I kind of like them. Wherever it's dry, I have to be careful that I like the shape of the edge going down. Where it's wet, it doesn't matter. When in doubt, pick up a big brush. You can get a lot of different colors. You can get 3 at one time, but and I want to get something warm in there to neutralize it. A little of the orange. So when I tip it, it will blend. All right, I'm getting ready to start emphasizing smaller things and what is it kind of a thing. Letting this run. I'm going to dry it. Okay. When I work in the studio, I have lots of paintings on hand, so I don't spend much time with a hairdryer. I just pick up another painting while something is drying. The other thing that I use a lot are matte corners. Give me an idea of what I'm doing as I'm working. And these are made out of plastic. I just went to a plastic supply store with a regular mat and said, cut one for me. Then you can just wash them off and they last forever. So I'm going to look at this. I've got so much going on and nothing is working yet, so I've got to make something work. So let me look at it and see which way I'm the most interested in. And I think it's this way. I'm going to do another layer up in here. And I'm going to come all the way over here. These square brushes have nice clean edges when you want a flat edge. Do I want this to go out or do I want to bring this dark across? For the time being, I'll let that go out. I don't know what it is, but I need a little water on my brush. Notice that I haven't been cleaning my brushes. I'm just using whatever is on them. And so I don't have to worry too much about unified color. No, I like that. I was about to go further all the way across, and then I changed my mind, and I thought maybe I'll continue whatever is on this brush and bring this darker value down further. Okay. I went to the Whitney Museum yesterday, and I saw a Georgia O'Keeffe painting, and it had this dark line going down it, and I think it just showed up over here. So let's keep it going. Let's see what it does down here. And now, I got everything but the kitchen sink in here. I might put some trees up in there. We'll see. But and now I want the movement to change a little. I'm hitting a little bit of a lighter blue, and I want that square going across again. Well, I've never seen this painting before, so I'm not sure what it's going to be when it grows up, but I'm having some fun with these shapes in this area. I was always told to work from the big to the small, but I get excited about the small stuff, so I spent a lot of time looking at Gustav Klimt's work, where he takes all these small shapes and builds them into bigger shapes. So we will see where this one goes. So I like to go back and forth, and I've got an awful lot of whites running around, and they're not a developed shape yet. Let me see I'll give it a 2-second dry, because if you don't know what's wet and what's dry, you can get into a lot of trouble. What I'm struggling with now is I like this, but I know I have to do it's pulling your eye here, etc. And I think it'd be a better composition if I get rid of the contrasts up in here, and yet that's one of my favorite parts. So that's one of the things that you struggle with in every painting. Matisse said something about wanting his work to have the lightness, something of a springtime, which never let anyone suspect the labors it has cost. And every painting goes through a lot of labor till you get there. So I keep hitting different colors because I'm not sure what I want, but I'm going to find out in a minute. Right, here we go. So I really believe I have to bring the eye down here. Maybe I'll do it a different way. Maybe I'll bring the eye down from starting down here instead of starting at the top. That's a good idea, better idea. I'm looking at the whites, and let me get rid of that one. I don't know what's on it. We'll find out in a minute. I'm repeating that shape as I go. I'm just having fun making these shapes. I'll connect that to that one. Now this area is getting quite complex. It looks a little like a quarry. I want where those whites are just a little bit too popping out. I'll put an intermediate value in there, so you go from the darker to a different value, so the white doesn't look as unfinished. Maybe the same on this one. I think I'll develop something in here now. I've got some orange and a little blue to neutralize it. Maybe I want to water it down a little bit. And, oh, that was what I wanted to do. I want to connect. There we go. So that one's kind of an echo of that shape. I think I'm going to give this one an intermediate value, so it's not so cut out. So we get this value and then the darker value and the red. This was my plan, that you would go around it like this, but it's just too cut off there. So let me try something else. Oh, let me bring it all the way over here. Here we go. We'll come down in here. Fill the white a little. I think I'm going to come in with some more detail now. In through here, maybe put some trees and stuff in. That's still wet. I don't know what will happen when I drag over it, but it might be interesting. Yeah, that's better. Connecting some more of these darks. In here. Anytime you have a dark midtone, if you come in darker, it makes the midtone look a little bit lighter. A little more stuff in there, so that all the detail isn't just there. And I'll go for the warmer colors that are underneath it. Back for the alizarin. I think I've become a Westerner. And that is a little aggressive. When I get a shape that isn't quite working, I make more of it, and then it feels better. I want to take a look at this. This side isn't developed yet, so I want to look at what is developed and see what I think the rest will need. In my studio, I have an overhead mirror, and I constantly will drop a mat on my painting and get back and look at it in the mirror. And I'm actually a little surprised at how this is. I had no idea what I was going to paint today, but it looks like, it certainly doesn't look like summer, does it? Looks a little bit like winter in the Sierra. All right, let me do the rest of it. I like it as a square, actually, and I would be happy to just keep that. But I can always cut it down, and I have to continue this because otherwise, why give up too soon? You can always crop a painting. That's too symmetrical, that one. Let me change its shape and bring it down more. As soon as you start painting around an area, it gives the area a shape. And there's so much hard edge in this that this area I hadn't put any hard edge in. So, okay, so now that's a little too strong, but that means it needs another intermediate value in there. But let me work on the bottom of it, extending whatever was going on over here. All right, then I'm going to put another layer here so it gets another value in through there. So when I'm looking at this, I have used a lot of blue and green all over, but I haven't used this pink over here. And I haven't used any green up in here. So it does have some color movement, although it certainly has hit the cool dominance. I'm going to do a negative shape out of this and leave the bottom kind of light like that, and then just take some of this, not too dark, and oh, what a nice gray. See what you get out of a palette when you've left things alone? Well, that's kind of interesting now. And then with clean water, oh, I forgot to use my bath. I'll do that now, the water bath. This is the lid to a cookie sheet. And I keep one of them in my sink with water in it. So if I'm working on a half sheet and I want to re-wet it, I can just, and notice nothing is happening to the paint. And it's staying exactly where I put it. And that's because I'm not agitating it and it was dry. So if you decide you want to do a wet and wet wash over a painting, you got a lot of white paper and you want it to be really wet, isn't it amazing? And then, of course, the buckles, I'm getting rid of the buckles. I could, flatten it that way too. So it does make, so if I want anything wet and wet now, it would be the time to do it. But I'm going to, I don't want it this wet. What I'm hesitating about now is, I know I can make this stronger if I put a wash over some of these areas and leave some of this with the detail. But I hate doing that with a painting that is this young. I usually like to live with a painting for a while to make a lot of decisions about it. But I'm going to do a little bit more with this. And one of the things that I always annoyed me was being asked, where's your center of interest? And I look around and I don't know where it is. Well, where's the center of interest in a Monet water lily painting? Or, you know, well, of course this isn't a Monet water lily painting, but it is a landscape, and it's not about a center of interest. It's really about a journey moving through the painting, which is how I feel when I'm moving through the mountains or etc. But I want to do one more wash layer, and I'll use some transparent. There's that warm, the quinacridons. All right, I'm still looking at that stair step thing, which I like, and wondering if one more layer won't make it a little bit warmer. Maybe some magenta in it. So I've got burnt orange and magenta. Now you can see if I had I like that better. It's got one, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 layers there, and it seems to be richer. I want to do a little of that up in here too. I should really pick up a smaller brush, but had I made a value sketch of this, or any sketch of this, how would you follow it? Which is why I can't repeat my paintings, because how would I be able to reconstruct? So they've just built up. It's a process of building. I moved into a little more neutral, less warm. That's a little warmer there. We're going a little bit. Now I'm getting carried away. I may be doing too much over there. I'm going to do a little more over here, and then I want to continue that feeling up in the back. I'm going to. Well, I didn't simplify this at all, did I? I'm having too much fun. I had a painting I did in Norway, and or I did it when I came home from Norway, and I did a double elephant, and it had so much in it I couldn't look at it. So I cut it into 6 parts. I sold 2 parts, and the other 3 I got a mat made with 3 windows, and it's one of the best paintings I've ever done. So I don't, if I'm having a good time, then it's whatever, it's a piece of paper. I think I want another repeat of that dark, that You have to go to the Whitney and you compare and take a look at George's line. Whatever's over there is going to come over here. I don't want that. There's green paint on it there, so let's just see what we got. I have no idea. It's really hard to know until you get back. And a lot of times, if I can't get back from something, I'll drop it on the floor and walk around it, you know, and look at it all 4 directions. I want another edge there, so it's a little bit more gradual. And I'm not going to take the mat off. I'm just going to get the excess water out of my brush. This is my newest Skoda brush. It's very nice. Most of their brushes are round, but this one, and speaking of round brushes, I never mastered that technique where you use a round brush and you do a sky wash and you pick up the bead and you keep bringing it down. And it looked to me like an exercise for carpal tunnel syndrome. You have to make so many strokes. And I always thought that it was only the instructor who knew how to do that anyway. And so that's when I started just wetting the paper and throwing the paint in, tipping it and letting it do its thing. So that's when I figured out big brushes, fewer strokes. And where we get into trouble is at the edge of a stroke anyway. So if you don't have as many strokes, you have less problem. I'm grading that edge, and let me grade a little of it, soften a little of that one, right there and right there, and maybe a little bit of an intermediate value right in here. I thought I wanted to make that a rock, and I've changed my mind. I'll just make it a gradation. I'm killing a few of the lights so that the ones I have are a little bit stronger. And that one up there is sort of weird. I wonder if it'll be really weird if I put some cobalt turquoise on it. Why not? It's my painting. I can put any color I want on it. I still have that eye, and I think I'll get rid of it. It's at least it looks like an eye to me. Just give it some branches. And just, where is my smaller brush? Oh, I haven't even used this one. Repetition of a stroke always works better than 1 or 2 lines. As long as once you start repeating a stroke, it gives it a rhythm. Sometimes I pick up a brush that I should really pick up a smaller one, but it's in my hand. Continue a little more of the dark. I'm pretty happy with it. So I think I would be wise not to continue. I think we got enough strokes on this for the day.